In an exclusive interview to DD India's sister channel DD News, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke on a range of issues such as attacks by the opposition, his development philosophy and the ongoing election. The Prime Minister said that election is a festival of democracy.
लोकतंत्र में चुनाव एक बहुत बड़ा उत्सव होता है और उत्सव की सबसे बड़ी विशेषता है कि जिसमें मतदाताओं को एजुकेट करने का एक मास स्केल पर मूवमेंट शुरू हो जाता है। मीडिया के द्वारा, इन्फ्लुएंसर्स के द्वारा, ओपिनियन मेकर्स के द्वारा, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के द्वारा, लीडर्स के द्वारा। तो एक प्रकार से पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी डेमोक्रेसी के संस्कारों को आने वाली पीढ़ियों में उनके जहन में उतारने का एक उत्तम अवसर होता है। दूसरा, जो सरकार है या राजनीतिक दल है वो जनता को अकाउंटेबल होनी चाहिए। उन्होंने अपने काम का हिसाब देना चाहिए और चुनाव में उन्होंने जिस भी फॉर्म में जाए ये उनका काम है। भविष्य में वो क्या करेंगे, कैसे करेंगे, किसके लिए करेंगे, कब तक करेंगे, ये काम करने के लिए उनके पास क्या रोड मैप है, क्या रिसोर्सेज हैं, किस प्रकार का मैकेनिज्म है, ये सारी बातें उन्होंने देश के सामने रखनी चाहिए।
Prime Minister Modi said that in order to run a good government, constructive criticism is very important.
लोकतंत्र का भला इसमें है कि आलोचना हो, लेकिन आलोचना के लिए मेहनत करनी पड़ती है। मानो अगर मोदी ने कहा कि भाई मैंने 4 करोड़ घर बनाए, तो आलोचना करनी है तो भाई सचमुच में 4 करोड़ बने क्या, इस गांव में इतने कहे तो बनो क्या, बने वो जो क्वालिटी बताते थे वो क्वालिटी वाले बने कि नहीं बने, जिसको पैसा देना था उसको उतना पैसा मिला कि नहीं मिला, क्या बीच में कोई बिचौलिया खा, सारा स्टडी करना पड़ता है, वो नहीं होता है। और इसलिए जो लोकतंत्र को ताकत मिलनी चाहिए आलोचना से, दुर्भाग्य से इन दिनों वो सौभाग्य हम लोगों को नहीं मिलता है। तो मैं ये कमी महसूस करता हूँ कि अच्छी सरकार चलाने के लिए अच्छी आलोचना बहुत जरूरी है। और मैं तो ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि सदन में भी ऐसे लोग चुन करके आए जो विपक्ष में हो, मेहनत करे, अच्छा स्टडी करे, सरकार की कमियों को निकाले, तो देश का भला होगा।
The Prime Minister said that he has forced all political parties to talk only about development.
मेरे लिए ईश्वर के 2 रूप है, एक साकार, एक निराकार। जो साकार रूप है वो 140 करोड़ मेरे देशवासी हैं, वो मेरा ईश्वर का साकार रूप है। जो निराकार रूप है वो न मैंने देखा है न कोई किसी ने देखा, उसको मैं मिला हूँ। और इसलिए मेरे लिए ये ईश्वर आराधना जैसा कार्यक्रम होता है, जनता जनार्दन के दर्शन करना, उनके मनोभावों को समझने का प्रयास करना, कहीं कहीं पर संवाद करने का अवसर मिलता है। मैंने लंबे अरसे तक चुनाव लड़वाए भी हैं और लड़े भी हैं।
बिल्कुल।
लेकिन एक ज़माना ऐसा था चुनाव में ज़्यादातर जाति, बिरादरी और ऐसी खुल कर के चर्चा करने की एक फैशन भी थी और उस चीज़ों को अपील करने का प्रयास भी होता था। गुजरात से मेरा अनुभव है कि अब धीरे धीरे देश, मेरा गुजरात के समय की मैं बात करता हूँ, 10 साल पहले की, विकास के एजेंडे को पॉलिटिकल पार्टियां छूती ही नहीं थी। लेकिन गुजरात में मैंने सभी दलों को मजबूर कर दिया था, विकास पर ही बात होगी, करनी पड़ेगी। अब मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि जनता विकास के मुद्दों पर बात करती है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi slammed the opposition by saying that the so-called Khan Market gang has an agenda.
ये जो खान मार्केट गैंग टाइप लोग होते हैं, वे चुनाव के आखिर में एक सगुफा छोड़ते हैं कि हंग बनेगी, किसी को बहुमत नहीं मिलेगा। कम से कम इस बार ये हिम्मत कोई कर नहीं रहा है। वरना मैं सोच रहा था कि शायद जब 20 दिन बाकी होंगे तो ये मैदान में आ जाएंगे, सब हंग होगा, फिर चर्चा यही हफ्ते भर चलेगी। इस बार उन्होंने इलेक्शन कमीशन को इस विवादों में रख करके अपनी रोजी रोटी कमाने की कोशिश की है।
इस बार आपने उन्हें 400 की फिरकी में भी उलझा दिया ना।
हमने उलझाया नहीं है
जी।
देश की जनता का निर्णय हम समझते हैं, हम देश की जनता की आंखों में वो ताकत देखते हैं और उसको जनता ही अपने शब्दों में कहती है, हम तो इको इफेक्ट देते हैं। ये है तो आवाज़ जनता की।
The Prime Minister said that India trusts his government. He also spoke about the importance of a strong and stable government.
जब 2014 में एक सरकार चुनी तो वो पुरानी सरकार के प्रति गुस्सा भी था। मेरे पास गुजरात का एक ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड भी था और भारतीय जनता पार्टी बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से आई थी कि मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में हम सरकार बनाएंगे। तो देश ने भरोसा किया, लेकिन 19 में देश ने काम पर भरोसा किया और 14 से 19 में ज़्यादा सीटें देकर के हमें फिर से बिठाया। तो देश को लगा कि भाई ये पूर्ण बहुमत वाली स्थिर सरकार जवाबदेह होती है, ज़्यादा जवाबदेह होती है। गठबंधन में कोई जवाबदेह नहीं होता है, कोई इस पर टोपी पहनाएगा, कोई उस पर टोपी पहनाएगा, फिर बहाना बजाए भाई क्या करे, गठबंधन सरकार की मजबूरियां हैं। यहाँ तो कोई बहानेबाजी चलती नहीं, काम करना पड़ता है। तो इस कारण देशवासियों को भी पूर्ण बहुमत वाली मजबूत सरकार सूट करती है।
All right, let's now get you the latest on the world's largest election in India. Polling is underway for the sixth phase of India's parliamentary election. 58 seats are up for grabs across 6 states and 2 union territories. The approximate voter turnout was 49.2% as of 3 p.m. local time, this according to the country's election commission. West Bengal recorded the highest turnout at 70.19%, while Uttar Pradesh was the lowest at 43.95%. Delhi's polling percentage was at 0.58%, Bihar at 45.21%, Jharkhand at 54.34%, Jammu and Kashmir 44.41%, Odisha at 48.44% and Haryana 46.26%. Voting is taking place on all 10 seats in Haryana, all 7 seats of Delhi, 8 seats each in Bihar and West Bengal, 14 in Uttar Pradesh, 4 in Jharkhand, 6 in Odisha and 1 seat in Jammu and Kashmir. Polling is also being held on 42 seats for the Odisha Legislative Assembly. A total of 889 candidates are in the fray. The polling began at 7 in the morning local time and will conclude at 6 in the evening. The 7th and last phase of election will be held on the 1st of June. The counting of votes will take place on the 4th. Many prominent personalities came out early to cast their vote. India's President Draupadi Murmu cast her vote in the New Delhi constituency. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar and his wife Sudesh cast their votes in New Delhi. The Vice President urged everyone to exercise their right to vote and fulfill their constitutional duty.
मताधिकार दायित्व भी है, ताकत भी है। भारत विश्व का सबसे ज्वलंत, सक्रिय, प्रभावी लोकतंत्र है, दुनिया के लिए एक मिसाल है। मताधिकार दायित्व भी है, ताकत भी है। भारत विश्व का सबसे ज्वलंत, सक्रिय, प्रभावी लोकतंत्र है, दुनिया के लिए एक मिसाल है।
India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar cast his vote in New Delhi, calling it a decisive moment for the country. Minister Jaishankar urged people to step out and cast their vote. A former President of India, Ramnath Kovind, and his wife cast their votes in New Delhi. BJP leader Hardeep Singh Puri cast his vote in the country's capital as well. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi cast her vote in New Delhi. Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik cast his vote in Bhubaneswar. He urged all voters, especially the young, to vote. India's Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar cast his vote in New Delhi. He said that it is a matter of great pride for him and that every voter must cast their vote. Election Commissioner Sukhbir Singh Sandhu cast his vote in the national capital. He inspected the arrangements at a polling booth and urged voters to turn up in large numbers across the country. And it's time to bring in DD India's team of reporters who are covering the election. Joining me are Deepika Mehto from Azamgarh in Uttar Pradesh, Siddharth Bharadwaj from New Delhi and Amritpal Singh from Haryana. Siddharth, to you first, how's the polling on all 7 seats in Delhi coming along?
Well, first of all, a very good evening to you, Ramesh. And, in this biggest festival of democracy here in India, 7 seats are up for grabs in the NCT of Delhi. And as far as the polling is concerned, Ramesh, then I am here right outside Nirman Bhavan, which comes under the New Delhi constituency. Now, I would like to begin with the voter turnout. Now, for the NCT of Delhi, if you allow me to read, it's 44.58% for the NCT of Delhi. And where I am right now, New Delhi constituency, it's 42.17%. People here are coming, in large numbers and, exercising their franchise. I just checked the mercury 5 minutes back, Ramesh. It's 43 degrees Celsius, and which indeed creates, impacts when it comes to the voter turnout. When the voting started at 7 a.m. today, people were here to cast their ballot, but now as the temperature soared, there was some people were not coming that much to exercise their franchise. But now, as the day is progressing, the mercury is coming down. People are coming here to cast their votes. So basically, all in all, on the 7 seats of Delhi, the voting is actually now starting with another push as the day is progressing. As far as the political landscape is concerned here in NCT of Delhi, Ramesh, then there is the direct competition between the BJP and the India alliance of the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress. And when it comes to the seat sharing, then it's 4 and 3. On 4 seats, Aam Aadmi Party is contesting, and on 3 seats, Congress is contesting, which is the Northeast Delhi, Northwest Delhi, and the Chandni Chowk. So basically, all in all, the entire environment here is all in all good. But it also, you don't see these things in politics, Ramesh, that a political party is voting for another political party. Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi today came here to vote here only in Nirman Bhavan, and they voted. So basically, it's rare to see this particular scenario, but it is happening. So it shows, that India is certainly. It's the biggest festival of democracy which is going here in the NCT of Delhi. Ramesh, back to you.
All right, from Delhi, let me hop across to the neighboring state of Haryana, where my colleague Amritpal Singh is standing by. Amrit, how's the response among voters where you are?
Well, the response, there is considerable enthusiasm amongst the voters here in Haryana. If you take all the 10 constituencies together, the voting percentage has crossed the 50% mark. Generally in Haryana votes in good numbers. The last time around, the voting percentage was above 70%. So with about 2 hours left, or a quarter less than 2 hours left, one would expect that the voter turnout should reach around that figure if it doesn't breach that figure. So I would say the voter turnout, the enthusiasm in the voters is pretty high, especially in the rural areas, though urban areas are witnessing less voting as is usually there, but in the rural areas there is considerably high voting taking place, Ramesh.
All right, let me now turn to Deepika Mehto, who is joining us from Azamgarh in eastern Uttar Pradesh. Deepika, what can you tell us about the polling there and the turnout in Azamgarh and elsewhere in Uttar Pradesh?
Good evening, Ramesh. When we talk about the polling percentage of here, particularly in Azamgarh, it is as of now 43.38%. I will quickly show you. I would request my camera person to pan the camera and quickly show you the visuals of the current scenario, and you will get a fair idea of the number of voters who are coming at the last moment, because we are just, I think, almost 2 hours away when the polling would be closed. At 5 o'clock, it would officially close, but the people who will remain inside will be able to cast their votes. So you can see a fair number of people who are now walking inside the polling booth after 4 o'clock, because it is really hot and humid over here. So we are expecting the 43% to go above and at least touch the 50% mark. Now, when we talk about the voting percentage here, since the morning, in the morning it was fairly good, but then it completely stopped in the afternoon, because in the peak afternoon it was really sunny and hot. It is rather very sunny and hot right now also, but we can see a good number of voters coming across. And if we talk about all the seats, all the 14 seats of Uttar Pradesh, the percentage is similar. It is 43%, because I think the reason is the heat wave, the heat and humid conditions that the voters are facing. Apart from that, if we talk about the preparations by the Election Commission, they are good, because Election Commission have put water dispensers here at every polling booth. We crossed around 8 to 9 polling booths across Azamgarh. We went to Jaunpur also, and we saw similar situations and facilities for the voters there. But it is now up to the voters to come and make it till the last moment, which we can see right now here in Azamgarh, Ramesh.
All right, we leave it at that. Deepika Mehto in Azamgarh in eastern Uttar Pradesh, Siddharth Bharadwaj in Delhi, and Amritpal Singh in Haryana. Thank you all for now. Much appreciated. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects South Africa's claim of a genocide as false and outrageous. The US announces a new $275 million aid package for Ukraine. And India's Disaster Management Agency is gearing up for a cyclone that might hit the state of West Bengal over the weekend.
एक्सरे कैसे करवाएंगे सर?
चुनाव की जो नामांकन पत्र है उसके अमाउंट का एनालिसिस करो ना।
तो बहुत सारे नेता लपेटे में आएंगे सर।
भाई कोई नेता ही पहले आने चाहिए।
इस चुनाव में क्या जनता के मन में ये मुद्दा उठता है कि उनको एक स्थायी सरकार चाहिए, मजबूत सरकार चाहिए?
अभी देखिए इनका इंडी गठबंधन के अंदर चर्चा क्या है कि भाई 5 साल 5 प्रधानमंत्री, 5 साल 5 प्रधानमंत्री, एक्चुअली वो ये प्रयोग अलग से हो चुका है।
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Some more news on India's elections. DD India's Deepika Mehta was at Jaunpur in the state of Uttar Pradesh. She caught up with some voters of all ages who are upbeat about celebrating the festival of democracy.
Jaunpur, and we have with us a group of enthusiastic voters who are already done with the voting. आप लोग सुबह सुबह वोट करने आए हैं, क्या आपको इतना एक्साइट क्या करता है, क्यों ज़रूरी है वोट करना?
ज़रूरी इसलिए है क्योंकि 5 साल तक सरकार ही नहीं चलाना है। विश्व स्तर पर चुनौतियां बहुत बढ़ गई हैं और आवश्यकता है इस बात की है कि हम जात पात क्षेत्रवाद को भूल करके ऐसा वोट दें कि पूरे विश्व में चुनौतियों का सामना सशक्त ढंग से कर सकें। आज इसकी आवश्यकता आ गई है।
हम एक जागरूक मतदाता हैं और आज का दिन जो है हम लोगों के लिए एक त्यौहार है, राष्ट्रीय पर्व है। तो देश के विकास के लिए हम लोग इसमें हमारा जो सबसे बड़ा योगदान होगा राष्ट्र के लिए, हम एक अच्छी सरकार चुनने के लिए अपना योगदान दें।
हम लोग अनवर जब से इसके एलिजिबल हुए हैं तब से लगातार वोटिंग कर रहे हैं और एक मजबूत लोकतंत्र के लिए एक महिला परिवार की रीढ़ होती है, तो उसके मजबूत लोकतंत्र के लिए हम अपना मतदान हमेशा करते रहें।
हमारी यही एक्सपेक्टेशंस है कि सरकार विकास करे और एजुकेशन को और बेहतर बनाए।
So there you heard all the voters. We talked to female voters, male voters, first time voters, and all of them have to say that they are witnessing a lot of progress here in Jaunpur, and they continue to do so because this is their responsibility and they enjoy participating in this festival of democracy. With camera person Sanjeev, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Jaunpur.
And voters lined up outside polling stations in India's capital, New Delhi, as all 7 constituencies went to the polls. Akshay Dongre speaks to some voters.
The polling for the 6th phase of the general election is going on, and all the 7 constituencies of Delhi are also going to polls. And in this scorching heat, amid a heat wave, voters are showing enthusiasm. They are coming to their polling booths, and from young to the senior voters, everyone. So you all have come out in this scorching heat. Many a times, even the young people, they just avoid coming out, and they're like, just take a long weekend instead. What do you have to say to people, especially?
I think it's terribly important to vote, to exercise your right. This is the only time. I think it's our duty as a citizen. It's been hard won, hard fought, and it's our moral, political, social duty to vote.
I was worried about the heat and about the long lines, neither of which is true. It's not that hot, and the process went very smoothly. Every vote counts.
No, it was good. I think it was pretty seamless. It's important to vote and to exercise your voice. I think it's as my mother said, it's super important to do that.
Okay. So we just spoke to the family that was here. All of them have come out. In fact, they spoke incredibly well about how it's not only a right but a responsibility of every citizen as well to try and exercise their right here and fulfill their responsibility as well by casting their ballot and choosing their own representative by their vote. With camera person Yogesh, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
Meanwhile, campaigning is on in full swing for the 7th and last phase of India's parliamentary election. Polling would be held on 57 seats across 7 states and 1 union territory on the 1st of June. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a public rally in Bihar's Patliputra. The Prime Minister also held a campaign rally in the Buxar district of Bihar. The Prime Minister also held a public meeting in Caracas city of Bihar. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister said the people of the country have rejected the Congress, the RJD and the opposition alliance as they only have confusion but no vision.
भाई और बहनों, कांग्रेस, आरजेडी और इंडी गठबंधन को देश बार बार खारिज कर चुका है, नकार चुका है। इनके पास न विजन है, इनके पास सिर्फ और सिर्फ कंफ्यूजन है, इनके पास हौसला का नामो निशान नहीं, इनके पास हताशा ही भरी पड़ी है, इनके पास नीति नहीं है, निर्णय लेने की क्षमता नहीं है, ये सिर्फ नकारापन लेकर के जी रहे हैं।
Another BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah, along with BJP leader Anurag Singh Thakur, held a public rally in Hamirpur in Himachal Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath addressed a public rally at Balia in the state. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge held a public meeting in Himachal Pradesh's capital, Shimla. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi and Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav addressed a joint rally at Gorakhpur in Uttar Pradesh. And now to some international updates. Following an International Court of Justice order for Israel to halt its operations in the southern Gaza city of Rafah, Israel called the order outrageous, morally repugnant and disgusting. Israel said that an accusation that it is committing a genocide in Gaza is false. Israel's National Security Council and Foreign Ministry issued a joint statement responding to the ICJ's ruling on Rafah and said that the charges brought by South Africa against Israel at the World Court in The Hague were false, outrageous and morally repugnant. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated Washington, D.C.'s position on Israel's military operation in Rafah. Blinken spoke to Israel's Minister Benny Gantz on Friday. The U.S. State Department said Blinken discussed the importance of Israel and Egypt concluding the talks on reopening the Rafah border as soon as possible. The United Nations Security Council on Friday called on all countries to respect and protect aid workers and UN personnel alike. The UN Security Council adopted a Swiss drafted resolution with 14 votes in favor, while Russia abstained. It condemned all violence against them and the unlawful denial of humanitarian access. Right, moving on, the G7 finance ministers are heading into day 2 of talks in Italy, hoping to make progress on a deal for using frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. They are set to discuss a potential global tax on billionaires, although there are divisions within G7 members over the proposal. Giles Gibson has more from Rome.
By the end of this second and final day of talks in northern Italy, we don't expect there to be a fully fleshed out agreement when it comes to how to leverage $300 billion of frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. The German finance minister, Christian Lindner, going into day 1 of the talks, saying that there were many legal and technical issues that still need to be resolved, and a US official saying that they hope to see some progress on establishing principles, effectively a structure, but not actually progress on the fine details of all of this. Just to give you some background, what we've seen over the last few months or so is this debate with the US and Canada on the one side, who started off insisting that these frozen Russian assets should simply be seized and handed over to the Ukrainians, and then on the other side, mostly the Europeans, who have been very concerned about setting a dangerous legal precedent by confiscating the assets of a sovereign state. The middle ground that they appear to be moving towards is the issuing of a loan. The number that's been talked about by the US at least is that it could be up to $50 billion. That loan secured against the profits of those frozen Russian assets. And then we could see a final decision actually made when G7 leaders come to southern Italy for their summit in the middle of June. Meanwhile, going into this summit, we saw the US government announcing that their new higher tariffs on Chinese goods would kick in on the 1st of August. Those tariffs targeting everything from electric vehicles to batteries that go into EVs, as well as medical devices. Now, we don't expect the Europeans or the other members of the G7 to follow suit with tariffs of their own, but we could see in the final statement at the end of the day some tough language about the impact of Chinese imports on these G7 economies. Just finally, there is also this proposal on the table from France and Brazil as part of the wider G20 grouping about potentially bringing in some sort of a global tax on billionaires. Now, we understand that behind the scenes the US do not support this yet, that they have issues with some details in the proposal. And we also understand that there are other members around the table who are saying that a previous deal around establishing a threshold for multinational companies has still not been implemented. So they want to stick to agreeing that before another global tax is put forward in terms of this G7 grouping. Giles Gibson in Rome reporting for DD India.
In a related news, European finance ministers from the group of 7 wealthy democracies are likely to call on Israel to keep correspondent banking connections with Palestinian banks to support vital transactions, trade and services in their joint statement following a 2-day meeting in Italy that started on Friday. According to a draft joint statement, the G7 finance leaders also recommended removing or relaxing the measures that impeded commerce to prevent the economic situation in the West Bank from worsening further. The final joint statement will be released at the end of the talks on Saturday. The US has announced a fresh tranche of military aid for Ukraine, including ammunition, missiles, mines and artillery. A fresh aid package of $275 million was announced by the US in an effort to help Ukraine. Last month, US lawmakers passed a much-delayed $61 billion military aid deal for Kyiv after months of squabbling in the US legislature as Ukrainian forces suffered setbacks on the battlefield because of ammunition and funding shortages. Since then, President Joe Biden has ordered 5 tranches of military aid to be sent to Ukraine. Russia's President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had no legitimacy following the expiry of his 5-year term, and that this would raise a legal obstacle if Russia and Ukraine were to hold peace talks. At a televised press conference during a visit to Belarus, Putin said Zelensky's status was problematic. With Ukraine under martial law in the 3rd year of Russia-Ukraine conflict, Zelensky has not faced elections despite the expiry of his 5-year term this week. Putin is ready to halt the war in Ukraine with a negotiated ceasefire that recognizes the current battlefield lines, but is ready to fight on if Kyiv and the West do not respond. And joining me from Moscow is my colleague Dasha Chernyshova. Dasha, what can you tell us about the fighting in Kharkiv or elsewhere along the front line?
Well, the operation is ongoing with the Russian military, according to the Russian officials, making steady advances on the Kharkiv direction. We understand from the Russian Ministry of Defense that just released their statement. Moscow has managed to take more advanced positions, more favorable ones, and we're also hearing that they have managed to eliminate 210 Ukrainian soldiers over the course of just the past 24 hours. But the fighting is still ongoing in this direction. Elsewhere on the front lines, Russian military reports reports also gains. They say they have taken the control over the village of Arhangelsk in the Donetsk People's Republic. But interestingly, we have been hearing most recently from many Russian officials suggesting that Russia does hold the strategic initiative when it comes to the fighting on the battlefront in Ukraine. But also we understand that a lot more is expected to be achieved with the replacement of Russia's defense minister with a new veteran economist Andrei Belousov, with many of the talks now being held in his presence, especially the most recent trip that the Russian president has made, that is to Belarus, where Belousov held negotiations with his Belarusian counterpart. So speaking of the situation on the battlefront, we understand that everything is going according to the Russian strategy at the moment, and Moscow is certain of achieving the goals of what it calls its operation in Ukraine.
Now, the US has announced a new aid package for Ukraine. Also, the G7 is reported to be moving closer to a deal on using the frozen Russian assets to fund Ukraine's war with Russia. How is the Kremlin viewing these developments?
Well, in Moscow, there is a very clear understanding that it is illegal to freeze Russian assets in the West, first of all, and the possibility of using the profits from those assets is seen as a theft and expropriation. Moscow has said already that it was going to respond. It will be issuing its cases to the international courts, and it will be years of litigation that the Western world will be engaged into. But also Moscow insists that it is setting a very dangerous precedent. Now, the Russian president most recently also signed a decree which provides for the possibility of using the American assets in Russia to compensate Russian central bank and the Russian state for the illegal and unjust seizure of the Russian assets in the US. So certainly the understanding is very clear that Moscow will be working out its response to any step, any unfriendly step, as Moscow calls it, taken by the Western countries. Speaking of more weapons, obviously in Russia the position has not changed. Moscow does insist that more weapons to Ukraine mean more suffering for the Ukrainian people, and the Western countries are not interested in holding those negotiations. President Putin most recently speaking in Belarus said that Moscow is ready for the talks, but at the moment the tricky issue is with whom to negotiate, because Moscow does not recognize the legitimacy of Vladimir Zelensky, whose term according to Moscow has expired on the 20th of May. So it is very difficult now to understand with whom to negotiate in Ukraine, if Ukraine is allowed to do so, as once again Moscow insists it is the West that is deciding for Ukraine. All right, we'll leave it at that. Dasha, thank you. There was Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Taiwan voices concern over 46 Chinese military jets crossing the Taiwan Straits median line. Maldives decides to launch India's Rupay, a multinational payment service. And the Cannes Film Festival 2024 to conclude on Saturday.
The Western media has been writing continuously, commenting, analyzing about what it says a threat to Indian democracy.
I actually think that in many ways democracy is more under threat in the West because of this. I think voter apathy is one of the greatest threats to democracy that exists, and I don't think you can say the same for India. We can't always view India through the old lens. This is a new India, and this is a new and progressing India.
There is enormous power in people's narratives, especially when they tell their own story. We meet some people and communities who tell us how it is done.
Anything hazardous to humans is dumped here in North Chennai. We need to tell these stories because we are the ones who are affected by it.
Delhi Metro's philosophy is very clear. We want to generate non-conventional energy. Apart from the whatever is supplied by the grid, we want to generate a lot of energy through solar sources.
The benefit of running an MRF is that it protects me from the rain and harsh conditions outdoors.
Work goes on even in hot weather and during the rainy season.
India is one of the climate swing states. We have to get India right to get emissions and to be able to really combat climate change.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. To the Indo-Pacific now. 2 days after French President Emmanuel Macron visited New Caledonia to ease tensions, people were seen evacuating the French Pacific territory following more than a week of riots. On Friday evening, police shot and killed a man on the French-ruled Pacific island as he and a colleague were attacked by a group of about 15 people. An investigation is underway. The man's death brought the toll to 7 over 12 days of unrest in the region, which was sparked by a disputed electoral reform and exacerbated by significant economic disparities between the indigenous Kanak population and people of European descent. U.S. President Joe Biden will deliver the commencement speech on Saturday at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York, amid conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. His address is part of a push by the president to highlight the administration's efforts towards active and retired military personnel, including bipartisan law. He will participate in Memorial Day services in Virginia on Monday. The World Health Organization has said that COVID-19 cut global life expectancy by almost 2 years, wiping out a decade of progress. Global life expectancy fell 1.8 years to 71.4 years, the same level as it was in 2012. This according to a WHO annual World Health Statistics study. The amount of time an average person can expect to live in good health fell 1.5 years to 61.9 years in 2021, also the 2012 level. The impact was even worse than the findings of a study published by The Lancet in January, which says that average life expectancy fell 1.6 years during the pandemic. More than 300 people and 1,000 houses were buried by a massive landslide in Papua New Guinea on Friday. Hundreds are feared dead. The landslide has blocked highway access, making helicopters the only way to reach the area. The Prime Minister, James Marape, said that the Defence Force and the Department of Works and Highways were assisting with relief and recovery efforts. In some more news from the Indo-Pacific, China ended 2 days of military drills around Taiwan involving simulated bomber attacks and shipboarding practices on Friday. Taiwan denounced these drills as quote-unquote blatant provocation. China, which claims Taiwan as its territory, began the drills on the 23rd of May, 3 days after Lai Ching-te assumed the presidency of Taiwan. Beijing labels Lai a separatist and said that the exercises were a punishment for his inauguration speech on the 20th of May, where he asserted that Taiwan and China are not subordinate to each other. The India Meteorological Department has said that a deep depression over the Bay of Bengal is likely to intensify into a cyclonic storm by Saturday evening local time. It said the cyclone Remal is likely to cross between the Bangladesh and West Bengal coasts on Sunday midnight and become a severe cyclonic storm. Heavy to very heavy rainfall is likely to occur in West Bengal. The coastal areas of northern Odisha can also witness isolated heavy rainfall. An extreme rainfall warning has been issued in some areas of the northeastern states. Fisher folk have been asked not to venture out into the sea. District control rooms have been activated and are monitoring the situation. Maldives is set to introduce India's Rupay service. The move is being seen as bolstering the Maldivian currency, rufiya. The archipelago's Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Mohammad Saeed, has said that India has agreed to conduct bilateral trade using the local currencies. It's a significant step towards greater collaboration between the two nations and aims to reduce dependency on the US dollar. And joining me from Colombo is my colleague Ahmed Moeen Faruqi. Ahmed, for the benefit of viewers joining us from around the world, talk to us a bit, if you will, about Rupay. What is it and how many countries are accepting it?
Ramesh, good afternoon to you. And you see, Rupay has been an India's response to the existing several payment gateways and mechanisms that exist in the world, including the likes of Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and so on and so forth. To begin with, if we have to understand this, that there is a difference between these platforms, these mechanisms, that is Visa, MasterCard versus Rupay.
Okay.
There is a term which we come across, that is the merchant discount rate, the MDR. These usually the payment gateways, they charge an MDR of somewhere from 2% to 3%, as the case may be from gateway to gateway. However, in domestic market, Rupay does not charge any MDR, and that's one of the major incentives for the merchant establishments to adopt Rupay, and even for the banks, because banks also are supposed to pay an amount in commission for every transaction made to these portals. Now, this is on the domestic front.
Okay.
However, you mentioned on the global front, there has been a difference with regard to a flat rate being imposed in various countries where Rupay has been launched already. We are aware it is already functional in countries like Nepal, Bhutan, in Singapore, as well as in UAE. And just recently in February this year, we saw Rupay mechanism being launched in Mauritius as well. There are also a few other countries where UPI is also being functional, including countries like Sri Lanka. But with Maldives now adopting it, there will be a further expansion in the in the number of transactions that are happening on the Rupay mechanism, as well as the foothold it has. Ramesh.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ahmed Moeen Faruqi in Colombo. Thank you, appreciate it. And now it's time to get you all the glitz and glamour from the Cannes Film Festival. The 77th Cannes Film Festival concludes on Saturday with a closing ceremony. The Palme d'Or will be presented to the director of the best film. 22 films are competing for it. And Indian director Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light is one of them. Meanwhile, India's winning streak is continuing at the festival. Indian actor Anasuya Sengupta won the Best Actress for The Shameless, a co-production by 5 countries including India. Sengupta is the first ever Indian actor to win the award at Cannes. Black Dog by Chinese director Guan Hu won the Best Film Award in the Uncertain Regard category. DD India's Munmun Bhattacharya spoke exclusively to the makers of the Indian short film Sunflowers were the first ones to know that won the first prize at the Cannes Film Festival.
It can't get bigger than this for budding filmmakers at the Cannes Film Festival. The team that won the top prize from India for Sunflowers were the first ones to know in the last NF section of the Cannes Film Festival is right here with me. Such a pleasure to have the three of you here on DD India. Congratulations. Suraj, the director of photography, the DOP, Abhishek, sound designer, and Pranav, production designer, the set designer, are here with us. Well, such a moment that was to hear the jury call out the name of Sunflowers are the first ones to know. What crossed your mind when that happened?
It took us some time to believe it. We were not expecting the first prize. We were expecting that something good is going to happen. We were not expecting the first prize. But yeah, we are happy. We are happy, yes.
So did you freeze for a moment? Was it unbelievable for a few seconds?
Yeah, like I started clapping first of all, and then I held my head because I didn't know how to react to it. Like when they were announcing the first prize, I got a little hint from what they were saying. They were talking about night and they were talking about mise en scène. So we got a hint that it might be our name. We were just waiting for them to say it out loud. So the moment they said sunflowers, we were...
Wow. Pranav, did you see it coming?
Yeah, after announcing the third and second rank, we were kind of... हम एक जगह पे ऐसे रुक गए थे बस सांस थाम के कि and suddenly they announced the name. Sunflower were the first ones to know, and I started crying literally.
What a message from the winners of the first prize of the last and F section. The whole country is proud, and we hope this is just the start of India's winning campaign at the 77th Cannes Film Festival. With cameraman YK Loknath, this is Munmun Bhattacharya from Cannes for DD India.
And joining live from Cannes is Munmun Bhattacharya. Munmun, what can one expect from the last day of the festival?
Yes, good afternoon to you, Ramesh, from here in Cannes. Well, the closing ceremony starts at 6:45 p.m. local time, that is 10:15 India time. And Greta Gerwig is the chair of the jury for the main competition section. She is the director of Barbie, and she and other jury members would make the announcement for Palme d'Or. Like we've been saying, 22 films are competing for Palme d'Or this year, including Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine Is Light. But before we get there, George Lucas, who is a Hollywood legend, director, producer and screenwriter, the creator of Star Wars and Indiana Jones series, is going to be honored today with the honorary Palme d'Or for his contribution to cinema. He's someone who's brought together entertainment, cinephilia, innovation, technology, mythology, as well as modernity. Coming to the Palme d'Or, expectations are really sky high, Ramesh, because Indian film is in contention in the main competition section after 30 years. The last time it was in 1994 when Shaji and Karun's Swaham had contested. We did not win that time around. It was only in 1946, the year the festival started, that Chetan Anand's Nichanagar won the Grand Prix. What was Grand Prix then is Palme d'Or now. So only one Grand Prix or Palme d'Or we've won so far. And if this happens, then history would be created. This film is an Indo-French co-production. It's come in for rave reviews. We got an opportunity to see one screening of the film as well. The film really flows quite smoothly. The dialogues are strong and evolved. And it remains to be seen whether Payal will make it. This film has been completely shot in Mumbai and Ratnagiri. It's made use of the incentive scheme of the Government of India, under which 40% cashback of the production cost can happen if a co-production takes place. And this, as I've been saying, is an Indo-French co-production. And this is not the first time that Payal will win, in case she does, because she's already won laurels here. Her film Afternoon Clouds was screened at the 70th Cannes Film Festival. That was 7 years back. Then in 2021, her documentary A Night of Knowing Nothing won the Best Documentary Award here at the Cannes Film Festival. And this is going to be a hat-trick if this indeed happens.
Right.
But the competition is tough. There are other films in contention as well.
Now, Indian cinematographer Santosh Shivan was awarded at the festival. Talk to us a bit, if you will, about its significance for India.
Ramesh, quite significant really, because he is the first Indian, also the first Asian to win this award. This indeed is a recognition of Indian talent on the global stage. He is the 11th recipient of the award. This is a particular brand which is associated with Cine Lenses, and this got associated with the Cannes Film Festival in 2013. And every year this award is given out, except in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the ceremony was not held. Now, when Santosh Shivan was given this award by Indian actor Preeti Zinta and the president of Anjaneem International, he did reminisce about his journey. He said that he had started with Malayalam cinema, then he moved to Tamil cinema, then he moved to Hindi cinema, and now he works for Hollywood as well. And we know that he's directed now 17 movies. As a cinematographer, he's worked in more than 55 feature films. He worked in more than 50 documentaries. Now, whichever films he's directing, he's also doing the cinematography for it. And he said that the impact of his work was so much that he had once gone to Japan to meet members of the Japanese Society of Cinematographers. So at the end of the 15th day, they were all singing Chaya Chaya. Congratulatory messages poured in from the film fraternity. There were messages that came in from Shah Rukh Khan, from Amir Khan. Both are Indian actors, from Karan Johar, Indian director, from Meera Nair, Indian-American filmmaker, and more. And they were relayed at the award ceremony. So all in all, a proud moment really for India, something to cherish for years to come. It's a first as far as this honor is concerned, and if the Palme d'Or award were to happen, then this is going to be history for India at Cannes.
Munmun, thank you. Munmun Bhattacharya reporting there from Cannes. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Up. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. Okay, so let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. All of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.